Hey guys, how's it going? Toofty here, and we have some horrendously juicy Sentry spots for you today. We're on the third and final Enclosure map. Before we go on, let me just go ahead and do the thing you're meant to do on the internet, and that is promote yourself, okay? So have a little cheeky look in the description below. I've got a lovely Discord link there. I would love it if you guys could come along, join my Discord, and make the Toofty community a bigger and more joyous place, because I've only just recently set it up. There's artwork in there. There are memes. Do you like memes? There are blimmin' memes, okay? And I try and jump in every now and again to answer questions and say hi to you guys. So yeah, I'd love to see you there. I'll try and promote this more often because I'm not very good at doing this whole internet malark. Anyway, as always, a few spots that I've really enjoyed on this third stage of the map. This might be my favourite stage, and I think it has some of the most exciting and strongest spots for us to chat about. So let's jump in and take a look at the first area of the map. Okay, so this first area of the map is just full on bonkers. So the bad chaps come through these areas here, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 spots in this first area. The first one is in this corner right here. A little bit mental. It's worth bearing in mind that none of these are going to stay up for the duration of the game. It's all about just slowing down their progress and taking some time off the clock. But yeah, this is kind of interesting. I was just messing about and it turned out that it worked quite well. It completely denies this drop down to the right, and it just about reaches the area in the middle. The second spot I wanted to take a look at is on the opposite corner of the map, which I'm guessing not many people have actually tried out, but the reason I did so is because it's got a nice juicy metal pack over there. And finally, perhaps a slightly more realistic location just behind these buildings here. So the buildings give you a bit of cover, and so this will help you stay up for a bit longer and set up a bit of a base, an area for your team to fall back on. But I just wanted to reiterate that I don't think any of these positions are ideal by any means, you know. It's a very unusual kind of map layout for this first area, but it's good fun to try out new spots that they just don't expect you to build in. So I won't spend too long on some of these because I want to spend more time on some of the absolutely awesome ones that we're going to come to later. But this first one, as you can see, dispenser in the corner behind me, you've got a little metal pack to help you get set up, and as they come out this little doorway, it completely demolishes them. I don't know what that scout was doing, just thought he'd jump on my head. He was a brave lad. I've popped my teleporter to the left behind the rock, a little bit away from myself. It's quite a ballsy position to be fair, and you're not going to last too long here, but it's a fun and unexpected one to try out, and it does kind of demolish them as they come out this left route, and it just about reaches them as they push the cart, but it won't take long before a demo man or something will be able to take you out, because you are kind of tucked away in a corner and pretty vulnerable. So the second one that I think is more interesting is just behind this rock here. I'm just putting my dispenser down. You've got the huge metal pack there. I like to put my sentry gun just to the right of this rock, gives it a little bit of extra cover. You'll see me in a second moving my teleporter just to the right here where there's a health pack as well. So the map designers obviously want you to use this part of the map for something. Perhaps they had NGs in mind, I'm not sure. But yeah, what I found was that once you can get your team teleported into this corner, you can do a fairly decent hold for a little while. The sentry gun covers the main central route across the bridge thing in the middle, and you can sort of tank quite a bit of damage and quite a bit of pressure. Definitely a fun one to try out. I think this is stronger than the other side, has more potential. I'm going to play around with the precise positioning of the sentry gun, maybe having it a bit more out in the open, maybe tucking it a bit further back. I don't know, definitely a lot of fun to try out. And in this example, I've managed to hold for a good few minutes before I did eventually go down. So the third spot I'm going to show you is probably a little bit more sensible. It's just on this ledge at the back here. I've put my dispenser behind me on the lower ground. I put the teleporter in this little nook here. Quite handy, so when your team are teleported in, they're not under immediate fire, and it may take the enemy a little while to actually find that. But yeah, you can chill out on the lower ground. I'm moving away from the sentry gun, keeping my distance from my buildings, letting it do the damage, letting my team fall back to it if they need to. If you're going to build in this first area, this is probably the most practical place to do so. Again, you're not going to stay up. If they're on the cart like this with a bunch of heavies, you're not going to stay up. But you know, it's good fun. It's definitely worth trying out. Okay, so the second area of the map, this is where things get real juicy. It's super juicy, yeah? Now on the one hand, there is 3 routes through into this area of the map, so you're actually having to deal with a huge, wide, you know, not remotely a choke at all, if you see what I mean. So setting up towards the front might not be a great idea, but one place that I tried out and had some luck with was just on the right here on top of this container. This is quite nice because the majority of people will be coming through the middle, and from here you can defend probably the 2 most popular routes through. It's super unexpected. I've not seen anyone build here before. You know, it completely denies anyone coming out that far right flank, and as they push the car around the corner, it does a lot of work on them too. But naturally, this huge, wide part of the map does eventually kind of filter down into a choke point, and that's where we want to be building, right? So if you're playing a bit more seriously and you really want to win, I would recommend building and protecting this choke point. You know, it makes sense, right? And here we have a few options available to us. The first one is the most obvious one. It's just down on this area here. It protects the main central route through. There's a little route to the right it also protects. But on the other hand, there is a window on the left, so you've got to be careful if you are going to build here. But the second option that's way more preferable for me, and is just an absolute beauty to try out, and it's just on that higher ground, in the little window just here. You can't really see it very well on this map, but I think you know what I mean, and I'll show you in just a second. This bad boy covers the left, that's right, I said bad boy. It covers the left route in, it covers anyone down to the right as well, and I have a great example for you where we had like half a team, but I was able to somehow hold this position for an incredible amount of time. Before we take a look at these examples, there's one last little sneaky tactic I wanted to talk to you about. So, if you are building in this luscious spot, what you can do, if you feel like you're about to go down, you can actually retreat along this corridor and set up in this very unusual spot at the end of the corridor. Now, you've got to be careful with this kind of spot because it doesn't protect the route of the cart. A big no-no, obviously. Uncle Dame would not be happy, but don't tell him, it's fine. If you can rely on your team to protect the main route through, you can sort of set up this secondary base here, teleport your teammates in, and they can then flank the enemy, and it may do some good. But let's take a look at this in action in just a second and we'll talk a bit more about it then. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm putting my teleporter just in this corner here for this first spot. I'm putting my dispenser on top of this container as well. You're going to need it up there to support you as you kind of tank any incoming pushes. I'm putting my sentry gun just in the corner of this container, so it has kind of equal prominence for both directions. Once I'm set up, leveling my buildings up. As I said, these teleporters are so precious for your team, right? This map's so huge, it's such a trek getting to the front lines. If you can get your team in, you can make all the difference. And having a little kind of base like this, not necessarily covering every single route, but the majority of the routes through, and having your team protect the rest is an awesome and fun way to defend these maps. As you can see, as enemies come through on the left, they get demolished. Watching that demo man fly through that choke was an absolute joy to behold, I'm not going to lie. And as they push around to the right, it does sort of shoot down onto them too, and you can tank quite a lot of damage with your dispenser behind you, but unfortunately I do eventually go down with a well-coordinated spy and demo man. So I'd say this second spot is a pretty standard one, right? You tend to see an engineer build somewhere down here, but if you are going to build down here, I like to do it a little bit further back and just near this corner here. This way it protects the window to the left, which I think is really important because that's where a smart enemy will try and poke out and use it to take you out. So you need to be really on top of that, really vigilant, checking out for any incoming enemies to put pressure onto them. Again, as always, once you're set up, I've got my dispenser to the left here, and I can actually keep my distance from the sentry gun, just using my rescue ranger to top it up. I'm spreading out my buildings here, so, you know, rockets or demo men, they have a harder time taking out all your buildings at once. But yeah, as you can see, it is shooting up into that window, but that's going to be your main vulnerability. So that's why I think this next spot is a much stronger one to have a play with. Okay, so a little bit of me wants to show you this entire game because it was mental. Can't remember if I joined the server late, but there was basically very few of us on our team. But I set up in my most glorious position in this little doorway here, dispenser behind me, so you can fall back to that, teleporter just to the left, tucked away. And then as soon as I'm kind of set up and happy, what I like to do is get my secondary out and pressure this doorway to the left, so they haven't got a chance to even peek in without taking damage. But by doing that, it really sort of makes them think twice about charging in. And, you know, if a demo man was just around that corner and you weren't pressuring him, he'd have all the time in the world to lay down his stickies. But yeah, this is probably one of my favourite spots on the map. It really does do an awesome job of covering the entirety of this choke. Anyone coming to the right is much less of a problem. They're going to have a really hard time shooting up to this window. So you really do have to just simply keep an eye on this left route. Here I think eventually they do actually do a huge push. They've got heavies spamming my sentry gun like mad, but I'm able to really tank it, take loads of damage and cause a massive problem for the enemy team. The teleporter is still important here. I haven't done a great job of getting that up to level 3 because I'm so frantically defending and, you know, keeping my sentry gun up. But yeah, as you can see, the enemy are getting quite desperate here. You know, they're spamming in pills. They don't really know what to do. They are doing damage to my sentry gun, but I'm just topping it up immediately. But eventually they do take it down with enough pressure. And then I fall back to this other spot that I wanted to briefly talk to you about before we move on to the last section. Look at this is an amazing part of the game, right? Look at these demo knights, look at them charge in. No fear, who cares? Just kill them all. Yeah, I didn't last long in this particular game at that second spot, but here's another clip of me using that same spot. Again, it's not absolutely ideal, it's a little bit quirky, but I like to share these unusual ones with you, as well as the more tried and tested positions. This is nice because it does protect this left flank quite nicely. It gives them one route through, but the downside is obviously you're going to get pressured a lot because you've built your sentry gun so aggressively, so you're probably not going to last too long here. But another good one to try out and see how it goes. Okay, so let's take a look at the very last area of this map. This is where you have your last chance to hold this point, and you have a really good opportunity to do that. The spot you see people building all the time, and often I see like a good 5 or 6 sentry guns up here. It's just on this ledge here. It's good. It's a solid place to build. You can get your sentry gun up so quickly there because it's so close to spawn, but I'm not going to talk about it today just because it is a bit standard and there's nothing in particular I wanted to chat about for this spot. Instead, I'm going to talk about 2 other locations. The first one is another little bit of a quirky one, but it's just in this corner here. So this is quite nice because a lot of people poke their head in through that little doorway, so it will cover them quite nicely. And if they're pushing the cart quite quickly, it kind of attacks them from behind and they may not see it in time. I think it's nice because it's different. Again, it's not the absolute most ideal spot in the world, but I've tried it quite a few times and it's really slowed the enemy team down. But the second, and by far the most greatest, most beautiful spot you'll ever see in the world of TF2 is this bad boy. Just on the corner of this juicy ledge on the right, it's redonkulously good. It's borderline OP. Try it out, I'm telling you, it's a beauty. Sometimes teams are so lopsided that nothing will stop them, but building here is your best chance to stop whatever team you're up against. That's my opinion anyway. It protects this left flank, which is actually the route I take if I'm attacking, and it covers the whole area underneath as well, and it's such a tricky one to take out because it's so high up and it's so hidden away at a funky angle. Anyway, we'll talk more about this in just a second, so let's jump into some more gameplay footage. Okay, so the first one, I'm just popping it right in the corner there. This is a tactic I've talked about before, starting off building a little bit further in cover and then moving out a bit later. So I do eventually end up moving it a bit further out, more onto the edge of this corner, so it has more sight line onto incoming enemies. But once you're up, dispenser behind me so you can tank stuff if you need to. It takes out anyone coming in that little doorway to the right, but it also shoots right over to the left-hand side as well, which is really nice. It means it really is covering the entirety of this area. What I tend to do is, once I'm set up, poke out, pressure the enemy, try not to stick too close to my sentry gun, move around a lot. It's a much more enjoyable way to play, in my opinion. You can kind of see the enemy pushing the cart here and it not really shooting down onto them, so you've got to be aware that it does take a while to actually shoot down onto people pushing the cart, but at the last minute it will shoot onto them, and worst comes to worst, you can sort of run down there and get involved too. Okay, so let's move on to the very last position, and possibly the most greatest sentry position of all times. I like to build my sentry gun right on the corner, get my dispenser up there as well. Eventually you can put a teddy down, but obviously it's not as important on this very last area of the map. And as you can see in just a sec, anyone pushing in through the route underneath get completely demolished. Like, it's going to be so tricky for them to take this out. And one little nice trick you can do is, once you're set up, stand on top of your dispenser, and that gives you a little view of what's happening over the top of this wall if you sort of jump, and you can check out what's going on and where the enemies are. But often when I'm set up, I actually like to sort of chill out in this corner of the map here. It means anyone coming through that door, you immediately see them and you can sort of hassle them. It draws the attention away from your sentry gun, but it also means that you can constantly be involved in the battle, spamming the cart with your rescue ranger or what have you. As you can see, it doesn't quite reach that other side of this area, so they are able to push in a little bit there, so you've got to be careful of soldiers or what have you coming in from that angle. And apparently, if they're quick enough, a scout can run right on past and not get destroyed. I don't know how that happened. This scout is a very brave lad as well. He does not care. He's just going to take my sentry rockets to the face. Why not? But anyway, a really juicy spot. I would highly recommend checking this out. It's loads of fun to play around with because it can really put up a nice hold against even the most toughest of opponents. Well, there we have it, guys. We can tick off Enclosure from our list. Let me know what maps you want to see next. I'm considering bringing this series to different kinds of maps, not just payload. I'd love to hear your suggestions in the comments below. As always, if there are any spots that I missed, spots that you found and you think are really cool, please share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.